It starts with a question, a simple human inquiry typed into a white box that has served as the gateway to the internet for 25 years. You want to know how to fix a leaking pipe, or perhaps the history of the Roman Senate, or maybe just the nearest place to buy a replacement charger for your laptop. For 2 decades, the pact was simple. You give the engine a query, and the engine gives you a map. It points you to the experts, the creators, and the businesses that actually have the answer. It was a symbiotic relationship that built the modern web. But today, that pact is broken. If you type that same query now, you are not met with a map. You are met with a wall of text generated by a machine that creates nothing, knows nothing, and understands nothing, yet speaks with the confidence of an oracle. This is the story of how the most profitable company in the history of the internet decided to burn down its own ecosystem. This is not just about a bad user interface or a few funny glitches where an algorithm tells you to eat rocks. This is about the systematic dismantling of the information economy. We are witnessing a phenomenon that economists and tech historians will likely study for decades. A moment where a monopoly, terrified of irrelevance, chose to cannibalize the very partners that feed it. Google has launched a product that nobody asked for, which actively destroys the value of its core service, all to chase a competitor that operates on a completely different business model. They call it the search generative experience. The rest of the world calls it the end of the open web. The green owl of language learning apps might be annoying, but the multicolored G is currently engaging in an act of corporate self-sabotage so profound that it threatens to break the fundamental link between a creator's effort and their reward. The search engine is no longer searching. It is stalling. And while it stalls, it is eating the internet alive. The architect of trust. To understand the gravity of this collapse, we must first appreciate the sheer architectural brilliance of what came before. In the late 90s, the internet was a chaotic, unorganized library where the books were piled on the floor and the lights were flickering. Finding anything was a matter of luck or directory listings that were manually curated and perpetually out of date. Then came Backrub, the project that would eventually become Google. Larry Page and Sergey Brin didn't just build a better keyword matcher. They built a reputation system. Their algorithm, PageRank, was essentially a democratic voting system for the web. If a website was valuable, other people linked to it. Those links were votes. Google simply tallied the votes and showed you the winner. It was elegant, it was efficient, and most importantly, it was respectful of the user's intent. The early Google mission statement was almost religious in its purity: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Note the distinction. They wanted to organize the information, not replace it. For nearly 15 years, Google acted as the benevolent librarian. They directed traffic, they didn't hoard it. This approach generated arguably the greatest wealth creation machine in human history. By becoming the toll road for the internet, Google captured a slice of almost every economic transaction that began with a digital query. But inherent in this model was a specific limitation. To make money, Google needed you to leave Google. They needed you to click an ad or click a link. The value was in the handoff. This is what kept the ecosystem healthy. Publishers wrote articles because they knew Google would send them readers. Those readers would see ads or buy subscriptions, funding more articles, which Google would then index. It was a cycle of growth. But cycles of growth eventually hit a ceiling, and corporations, by their nature, are designed to reject ceilings. When you have captured 90% of the search market, you cannot grow by finding new users. Everyone is already a user. You can only grow by squeezing more revenue out of every second those users spend on your platform. The benevolent librarian began to change, slowly at first and then all at once. The 10 blue links that made Google famous began to drift down the page. They were pushed aside by shopping carousels, by map packs, by flight aggregators, and by featured snippets that scraped answers from websites and displayed them directly on the search page. This was the first warning sign. Google realized that if they answered the question right there on the page, you wouldn't click a link. You would stay on Google. But if you didn't click the link, the website that provided the answer didn't get paid. This tension simmered for years, a cold war between publishers and the platform, but it was manageable. Until the day the intelligence became artificial and the threat became existential. The red code and the hallucination. The catalyst for the current disaster occurred in November of 2022. OpenAI released ChatGPT, and for the first time in history, Google looked vulnerable. For 2 decades, Google had convinced the world that Googling was the only way to find information. Suddenly, there was a chatbot that could synthesize, summarize, and converse. It wasn't just a list of links. It was an answer engine. The executives at Mountain View didn't just see a competitor. They saw their own mortality. If users stopped searching and started chatting, the entire distinct business model of Google, selling ads against search intent, would evaporate. Management reportedly declared a code red. They pulled founders Brin and Page back into the fold. The directive was clear. Integrate generative AI into search and do it yesterday. This panic resulted in the deployment of the Search Generative Experience, or AI overviews. The premise sounds futuristic and helpful. You ask a complex question, and the AI reads the top results, synthesizes them, and writes you a custom paragraph answering your query. It sounds perfect. In reality, it is a technical and economic nightmare. The fundamental problem lies in what large language models actually are. They are not truth machines. They are probabilistic token predictors. They do not know facts. They know which words are statistically likely to follow other words. When you apply a probabilistic engine to a product that is relied upon for factual accuracy, you get disaster. The examples of this failure are already legendary, etching themselves into the folklore of internet failures. When users asked how to make cheese stick better to pizza, Google's AI, scraping a sarcastic Reddit comment from a decade ago, confidently suggested adding non-toxic glue to the sauce. When asked about the nutritional value of rocks, it cited a satirical article from The Onion and a geology blog to recommend eating at least 1 small rock a day for digestive health. These aren't just funny glitches. They are symptoms of a broken architecture. The AI cannot distinguish between a peer-reviewed medical journal and a shitpost on a forum. It treats them both as training data. But the hallucination problem is secondary to the interface problem. Let's look at the screen real estate. In the modern Google search result, the top of the page is often a block of 4 sponsored ads that look increasingly like organic results. Below that sits the massive, colorful block of the AI overview, taking up the entire middle section of the mobile screen. Below that, perhaps a People Also Ask module. The actual organic search results, the websites that actually created the content the AI is summarizing, are now pushed so far down the page that they require multiple scrolls to find. This is not an accident. This is a design choice. It is a choice to turn Google from a gateway into a destination. The zero-click economy. The economic term for this is cannibalization, but that word feels too soft for what is actually happening. It is more akin to a digital enclosure movement. By placing an AI summary at the top of the page, Google effectively satisfies the user's curiosity without requiring them to visit the source. In the industry, this is known as a zero-click search. According to data from SparkToro, even before the full rollout of AI overviews, nearly 60% of all Google searches ended without a click to an open web property. With AI overviews, that number is projected to skyrocket. Consider the user behavior. If you search for best hiking boots for wide feet, and Google's AI scrapes 3 reviews and summarizes them into a paragraph listing the top 3 boots, you have the information you need. You leave the page. You never visit the review site that spent thousands of dollars testing those boots. You never see their ads, you never click their affiliate links, and you never sign up for their newsletter. The value was created by the publisher, but the revenue was captured 100% by Google, or simply destroyed entirely. This creates a parasitic dynamic. The host, the open web, is being drained of blood by the parasite, the search engine. The financial devastation is not theoretical. It is visible in the stock charts of public companies. Chegg, an education technology company that millions of students use for homework help and textbook solutions, is the canary in the coal mine. In early 2024, Chegg's CEO warned that ChatGPT and AI search tools were impacting their growth. The market reaction was brutal. Chegg's stock, which once traded at over $100 a share during the pandemic peak, collapsed to under $3. That is a destruction of value exceeding 95%. Why pay for a Chegg subscription when Google's AI will scrape the answer from Chegg's free preview and serve it to you in the search bar? Publishers are bleeding. The Sun, a major UK tabloid, reported that their search visibility dropped by 40% in a massive algorithmic update. Informational sites, coding forums like Stack Overflow, and niche travel blogs are seeing traffic declines ranging from 30 to 60%. This isn't just about some CEOs losing their bonuses. This is about the viability of the content ecosystem. If a travel blogger cannot make money because Google scrapes their top 10 things to do in Kyoto list and presents it as an AI summary, the blogger stops writing. If the blogger stops writing, the AI has no new data to train on. This leads to a theoretical endpoint known as model collapse, an Ouroboros loop where the AI begins training on its own AI-generated garbage, leading to a rapid degradation of intelligence. Google is effectively strip mining the web, extracting all the value from the soil until nothing can grow there again. The legal reckoning. The arrogance of this approach has not gone unnoticed by the legal system. We are currently watching one of the most significant antitrust battles in American history unfold. The United States Department of Justice has already successfully argued that Google maintains an illegal monopoly in general search services. But the publishers are opening a new front in this war. The argument is copyright and fair use. Does summarizing a copyrighted article to the point where the reader no longer needs the original constitute fair use? Chegg, along with a coalition of other publishers, is arguing that it does not. They claim that Google is using their intellectual property to build a competing product that destroys the market for the original. It's like a library photocopying the best chapters of a book and handing them out for free at the entrance, then wondering why the bookstore next door went out of business. The French Competition Authority has already fined Google hundreds of millions of euros for using news publishers' content to train its Gemini models without proper transparency or compensation. In the U.S., the New York Times is suing OpenAI, and the logic of that lawsuit applies directly to Google's AI overviews. Google's defense is that they are driving traffic, not stealing it. They claim the AI overview includes links to sources, but the data contradicts this. The links in the AI snapshots are often tiny, hidden in carousels, or cited in footnotes that users rarely click. The design is intended to retain, not refer. The essential facility doctrine in antitrust law suggests that if a company controls a bottleneck that is essential for its competitors to do business, it has a special responsibility not to abuse that position. Google Search is the ultimate essential facility. By turning that facility into a walled garden that favors its own generated content over the content of the web, Google may be inviting a breakup of the company. The Innovators Nightmare. So why do it? Why would a company that generated nearly $240 billion in ad revenue in 2023 risk destroying the golden goose? The answer lies in the concept of the innovator's dilemma. Google is trapped. They are caught between a rock and a hard place, or perhaps between a rock and a glue-covered pizza. If they do not integrate AI, they risk losing the next generation of users to ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Bing. If the habit of searching is replaced by the habit of asking, Google's traditional search dominance becomes worthless. They have to pivot to AI to survive the long term. However, the AI model is fundamentally less profitable than the link model. Running a large language model query costs significantly more in electricity and computing power than running a traditional database lookup. Some estimates say 10 times as much. Furthermore, you cannot easily place ads inside a conversational answer without breaking the trust of the user. If the AI says, the best camera is the Sony A7 IV, and then you find out Sony paid for that sentence, the utility of the AI vanishes. So Google is facing higher costs and lower ad inventory. They are destroying their high-margin monopoly to build a lower-margin, higher-cost product, simply because the alternative is irrelevance. This internal conflict explains the chaos. It explains why the product feels rushed. It explains why the quality is low. It explains why they are willing to burn the publishers. They are desperate. The leadership at Google, once composed of engineers who wanted to organize the world's information, is now run by business pragmatists who are terrified of the stock price dropping. They have looked into the math and decided that sacrificing the open web is a price they are willing to pay to keep their position as the default interface of the Internet. But there is a supreme irony here. Google's value proposition was always that it could help you filter the noise to find the signal. By filling the results page with AI slop, sponsored placements, and hallucinated summaries, Google has become the noise. The signal is harder to find than ever. Users are beginning to append Reddit to the end of their searches, not because they love Reddit's interface, but because they are desperate for human verification. They want to know that a real person, with a real brain and real experience, actually typed those words. The dead Internet. We are potentially staring down the barrel of the dead Internet theory. This is a hypothesis that the Internet is no longer populated by humans, but by bots talking to other bots, generating content for algorithms to rank. Google's AI overviews are the accelerant for this future. As real creators get squeezed out by the loss of traffic, they will be replaced by content farms using AI to generate millions of articles a day, specifically designed to game Google's AI summaries. We will have AI writing content for AI to read, summarized by AI for a user who doesn't care. The human element, the messy, creative, brilliant, chaotic spark that made the web worth surfing, is being optimized out of existence. The tragedy is that we, the users, are the ones who trained this beast. Every time we clicked a CAPTCHA, every time we wrote a review, every time we posted a blog, we provided the data that is now being used to render us obsolete. The owl may have taught us Spanish, and the search engine may have taught us history, but the lesson they are teaching us now is far more brutal. It is a lesson in the nature of monopolies and the fragility of digital ecosystems. When a platform becomes a utility, it ceases to care about the individual. It cares about the aggregate. And in the aggregate, your need for accurate information is less important than the platform's need for retention. Google has made a calculation. They are betting that you are too lazy to switch. They are betting that the friction of moving to a new search engine is higher than the pain of scrolling past the AI slop. They are betting that they can starve the publishers and you won't notice until it's too late. But markets are resilient. History is littered with the corpses of companies that thought they were too essential to fail. Yahoo, AOL, MySpace, they all believed they owned the user. They were wrong. Trust is a non-renewable resource. Once you burn it, you cannot synthesize more. Google is currently burning it by the barrel. So, we are left with a choice. We can accept this new reality, where the Internet is a curated feed of synthesized approximations, a Reader's Digest version of human knowledge processed through a corporate filter. Or we can realize that convenience often comes at the cost of truth. The tools we use to navigate the world shape how we understand it. If our map is drawn by a machine that hallucinates, we are all going to end up lost. The next time you see that colorful box pop up, telling you the answer before you've even asked the question, take a moment to look past it. Scroll down. Find the human. Click the link. Because if we stop clicking, the lights on the open web won't just flicker. They will go out forever, and in the dark it won't matter how smart the AI claims to be. Google wanted to organize the world. Now, they are just walling it off. The question is, are we going to let them keep the keys? It seems the era of "don't be evil" is long dead. Now, the motto is simply, "don't be irrelevant," and they don't care who they have to delete to stay that way. Drop your thoughts below. Are you finding yourself appending Reddit to your searches just to find a human being? Or have you already jumped ship to a new engine? I read every comment because unlike the algorithm, I actually care what you have to say.